pragmatic, and, to be honest, sober optimism. The next chapter of our partnership depends on a clear and fair distribution of responsibilities. Europe must take the lead in providing robust conventional forces and take on greater responsibility for its own neighborhood, while the United States continues to contribute strategic and nuclear backing for the foreseeable future. The US has made this new burden sharing very clear, and Europe is acting. NATO is becoming more European so that it can remain transatlantic. The alliance needs to make sense for all members. Even the United States cannot act alone in today's world of emerging great powers. It needs allies. Having more than 30 of them all united in one powerful alliance is truly unique. It makes the United States stronger than any other of the great powers, and most importantly, stronger than its adversaries. But our alliance also needs to make sense for Europe. It depends on predictability. It depends on predictability of actions, and it depends on reliability of the American commitment. Questioning the territorial sovereignty and integrity of a NATO member state, excluding European allies from negotiations that are crucial to the security on the continent, all this damages our alliance and strengthens our adversaries, ladies and gentlemen. Let me also say a few words on Rubio's vision of the world's order. Secretary Rubio, yes, our international organizations have failed to solve many crises and conflicts. But the answer cannot be for a great power to go it alone. That might work in the short term. But in a world of more competing great powers, this will definitely not work in the long term. There's a much better way. Reforming and reinvigorating international organizations, just as Marco Rubio pointed out this morning too, so that they deliver what is crucial: peace and security. We can only do that together. Ladies and gentlemen, a strong and capable alliance is particularly crucial given the many interconnected threats and uncertainties we face. In Europe's southern neighborhood, we are confronted with a complex mix of fragile states and terrorism, as a recent resurgence of ISIS in Iraq has shown. It is easy but dangerous to overlook these simmering threats, considering the huge blow they can strike at both Europe's and America's security. In the East, we are faced with a highly armed and aggressive military power with the world's largest nuclear arsenal at its disposal. Russia is driven by raw power, revisionism, and egoism. Nowhere does this become more apparent than its brutal war of aggression in Ukraine. Moscow is not acting alone. It is pursuing the revisionist agenda by cooperating with China, Iran, North Korea. It is trying to use international fora such as BRICS and turn them into anti-Western blocs. Up north, Russia and China are getting ready to project military and economic power in the Arctic. In the event of an escalation in Europe, Russia would most likely use its northern fleet to open a second front, cut transatlantic supply chains, and threaten both sides of the Atlantic with nuclear submarines. Ladies and gentlemen, in a world of fragility, we cannot afford complacency. This is why Germany drastically increased its defense spending. To do so, we took a really huge step. We amended our constitution. This speaks volumes of how serious we are about our commitment to security and defense in and for Europe. We will reach our new defense spending target of 3.5% by 2029. We reformed our military service law. This will lead to a much stronger active forces and more resilient reserve. We are meeting NATO's targets on investment, procurement, and readiness. We have significantly scaled up investments in our defense industry, expanded production capacities, and streamlined our procurement processes. Germany today is guided by determination and strength. But one thing, ladies and gentlemen, never change. We will not act alone, but always in close coordination with our allies as a reliable partner. Division is weakness, especially when facing revisionist powers. We cannot allow internal or external powers to drive a wedge into our alliance. It is unity that gives us strength, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why Germany is working towards building unity at the heart of NATO and the heart of Europe. That is why we are deploying a full combat-ready brigade to Lithuania. That is why we are strengthening maritime security with Canada, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland in the North Atlantic. That is why we are now the largest supporter of Ukraine. And that is why our support for Ukraine will not waver, even as Putin's brutal war of aggression is entering its fifth year now. And when it comes to the future of Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen, 3 points are crucial in my view. First, we will keep looking for paths to a reliable peace, because Ukraine's future is fundamental, not just to European security, but to global security. We need a peace deal that safeguards both Ukraine's and our European interests. Second, the ball is in Putin's court. He is the one who is dragging out negotiations and is showing no willingness to compromise. He is shifting the cost of war to his own people. But he must not be mistaken. We will continue doing everything in our power to protect Ukraine as an independent, sovereign European nation. We will keep up the pressure politically, economically, and militarily. And third, we will have peace. And when, not if, this day comes, we will have to make this peace last. We will have to shield Ukraine from any potential future aggression by Russia. To accomplish this huge task, Ukraine needs substantial, reliable security guarantees. And it was, in fact, Marco Rubio who made an important point in 2014 before the US Senate. He reminded everyone that the 1994 Budapest Memorandum did ultimately not serve the purpose of providing for Ukraine's security. Quite the opposite. 20 years later, Russia invaded and annexed Crimea. Therefore, our lesson for today, ladies and gentlemen, must be: we cannot afford another paper tiger like the Budapest Memorandum. To provide credible and reliable security guarantees, all of us, European and Americans, have to deliver. Europe and Germany stand ready to play their part. Ladies and gentlemen, when listening to today's and yesterday's speeches at this conference, I am once again reminded of my mother's biography. She lived through the radical destruction of the German democracy and the international order, because not enough people in Germany and elsewhere stood up to those who wanted to destroy and replace it with their barbarian ideology of war and suppression. But she also witnessed the emergence of a new, stable, free and rules-based order, thanks to the dedication of those who worked to establish it. This brought peace and freedom to large parts of Europe. There were times when we Europeans took this all for granted, and when we did too little to support the precious order, when we dwelled on our weakness, when we complained, when we criticized each other for inaction. And Radoslav, we all remember your famous words about German inactivity. The reality today is very different. Combined European armies outnumber any other army in the world. We are spending much more on defense than ever before. Our defense industry produces top-tier equipment. We are taking our future into our own hands in the areas of joint capability development and procurement financing. But, to be clear and honest, there's room for more, for much more. I want German and European security and defense policy to be more effective and more hard-edged. I want Europe to be more than a strong economic force. It must develop more military power. It must take over more responsibility for its own security. I want our actions to be better coordinated internationally, and I want them to be more visible. I want security to be not just a whole of government, but a whole of society matter. This is key to building real resilience in Europe. I want us to be able to pursue our own interests and to stay the course even when the going gets tough. With the debates over Greenland, we have proven that we are capable, ladies and gentlemen, of doing so. We have to reform and harden our international organizations so that they can better deliver. We have to do more to strengthen our institutions and conventions, with both our traditional and potential new partners and, if need be, just us Europeans. In a less reliable world, we need more reliable politics. Our strongest currency in this world is reliability. In times of fragility and transition, when few things can be taken for granted, I want Europe to be a reliable anchor for other nations, a continent supporting and shaping an international order as a basis for peace and freedom, and, equally important, providing for its own security. Let us show what we Europeans are capable of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Pistorius. And now I would like to invite our distinguished panel to join us here. First and foremost, the President of the Republic of Lithuania, Gitanas Nausėda. Please, Mr. President, please join us here. Second, Mr. Taras Kaczka, the Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine for European and Transatlantic Integration. Next, the Deputy Prime Minister of Poland and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski. And last but definitely not least, Elisa Stolkin, I'm so sorry, the Senator, U.S. Senator, member of the Senate Committee on Armed Services, the United States. Thank you, Senator, for joining us here. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me maybe start for allowing to take the floor to our Ukrainian guests here. Prime Minister Kaczka, if you could tell us what is the current situation in Ukraine and how has this hardest winter of all affected the civilian population?
Thank you for inviting and for this question. I think it's difficult to add to the description of situation that as it was done by President Zelensky, but I think that there is one thing that I would like from government to highlight, that the biggest target of Russia this winter is energy, and it's already 4th year they attack our energy, but this time it's like very tough, so that they use every type of missiles, ballistics, so there's the hypersonic, so that like drones and massive things. And what we see is that we are capable to defend ourselves, but technologically, so that we have two tactics. First is, as it was on the screens during President's speech, is to repair our energy system. But you need to have a stocks of equipment in order to repair, so that's why we grab literally everything we can use in Europe, especially the equipment that is not used, obsolete, old-style equipment, to repair. And we will repair our energy till the moment that we will have stocks for equipment. And it is difficult to do because Russia is destroying, literally like attempts to destroy the energy system to the level that is not repairable. But we will not give up and we will continue to do so. Second big thing is that we are able to intercept, so that together with your support, with US equipment, European equipment, we can intercept almost everything, but also the question is a scale. So we need missiles to Patriots, to some TIRST, to other equipment, and with enough stocks, we will be able to intercept. So now we are not successful in this, so that's why our pledge is like, help us more, because this quantity is meta now, so this winter. So that's why this is the request. But what happens in Ukraine, so that the situation when you continue to make joke that out of free electricity, water or heat you can choose two is already optimism. A lot of people in Ukraine cannot choose nothing, so they have nothing, no water, no electricity, no heat in a very harsh winter. So why it is important for Russians? So Russia wants to use winter as a weapon. They have this memory of this because they defend them during Napoleon time. I don't know, so that. But now they are aggressor. They are trying to use winter as a weapon. We are not going to give up, and if we will survive this winter, this course will be done as well as their ballistic missiles if we have equipment. But now, so that life in Ukraine, especially in Kyiv, is that you have no choice. If you want to have a hot tea, you will wake up at 3 a.m. because you have electricity and you have your tea, and you try to maintain it till through the day. Or if you want to go to shower, so it's like at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. When you have electricity, when you have water, you can do this. But we have whole districts where you have nothing at all. So like 5 kilometers from my apartment, so we have a district Tryeshina where a lot of people have no access because the power generation was destroyed to the level that they cannot help. And we really appreciate all the help with generators, with other resilience units and other helps, humanitarian help that is provided by citizens of Europe, governments of Europe, and I think with your support we will survive. And just to complete on this, I think that this is the picture of humanitarian catastrophe. But the morale of society is still very high. So no one is saying that we are ready to give up. So no social polls, not private opinions. No one is saying so that enough. We are not ready to fight against Russia. So that's time to do it. No, the situation is absolutely different. So that's why our position remains the same. We are ready to fight. We are ready to protect ourselves. Please help us with all necessary security guarantee, and let's fight for the stable and just peace as it is requested by our president. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that really informs us on the current situation. But to the president, when I listen to Prime Minister Kaczka, I feel anger. Because on the one side, you see resilient people fighting for their country, but then no nation should have to go through 4 years of this. And we see that the fourth winter is the worst winter so far, and nothing is changing. It seems like the situation for Ukrainians is becoming worse. Have we failed?
Yes, the Deputy Prime Minister described the situation quite well, and I can only imagine what is the situation in the flats of ordinary people where the temperature is, let's say, 2 or 3 degrees plus. We can only imagine living here in the European countries. For us, it was pretty clear from the very beginning. This is also about emotions, but emotions do not help. If emotions lead to the decisions, then emotions are constructive. So this was the reason why Lithuania was the first country to deliver the first weapons to Ukraine, even 2 weeks before the war broke out. I visited Kiev actually last day before the war started, together with former President of Poland, Andrzej Duda. And since then, I saw the big transformation of the thinking of European nations regarding the Ukraine. We started from the discussions Should we deliver the helmets? Should we deliver life jackets or something else? And now where we are in the situation where we are talking about the delivering of deep strike capabilities, missiles, air defense systems, ammunition. Yes, they are still in lack of these goods, and we try to do our best in order to support them consequently. But what is my thinking, and Russia is proving every day that Russia is not ready for the peace. And I don't think that they will be ready to peace negotiations. I don't know, maybe in 27, 28, but not in 26. Because all the actions show that they are just imitating the negotiations process and at the same time trying to break the morale of Ukrainian people. Yes, they are not successful by doing this. This is good side. But this is at the cost of suffering of Ukrainian nation, Ukrainian people, brave Ukrainian people. I really admire this nation. This nation is exceptional, being able to withstand this huge pressure of big country, big aggressor, 4 years in a row. But without our support, they will be not able to succeed. So what is needed right now? Our support, continuous support, our readiness and our unity with our transatlantic partner too. And we try to do it in European Union formats. I am the member of European Council. I am happy that we were able to take the decision regarding 90 billion euros as a military support to Ukraine. Not always we are successful. Sometimes we face some delays. We face differences in the opinions. But we are ready to provide these decisions, and we are ready to stay with Ukraine until the end of the war.
Thank you. Prime Minister Sikorski, I think we all agree here that we don't believe in Russia's intention to end this conflict anytime soon. Where do you think we're going to be a year from now, sitting at this stage? Where would we want to be, and where are we going to be? And what can we do today to make sure that Ukraine will not be going for a 5th year of war and a 5th winter that might be even more devastating than this one?
I'll answer your question, but let me make 2 brief points first. First of all, I'd like to associate myself with what Minister Pistorius said, that it was natural for the United States to be in the lead in these negotiations when the United States was providing the bulk of the military assistance. And the United States was also brave and effective in deploying strategic intelligence to deprive the Russians of the casus belli in the days before the war and in the early days of the war. But I would like particularly our American guests to know, because it's not fully in the American infosphere, we are now paying for this war. The American outlay for the war for last year was close to 0. We are buying American weapons to be delivered to Ukraine. There is no package in the US Congress, and that there isn't even the prospect of a package. If we are paying, if this is affecting our security, not just Ukraine's, then we deserve the seat at the table, because the outcome of this war will affect us. Number 2, consider what these attacks on Kiev and other Ukrainian cities tell you about Putin's ideology. The whole invasion was justified on the pseudo-Tsarist and Soviet grounds of Ukrainians being really just misguided Russians. If we get united, they'll see the light. So they were a brotherly kind of peasant version of Russians. And Kiev was really a Russian city. So Putin is now bombing his brothers and bombing a Russian city. I think that shows you that this is in fact a colonial war. He is just bent on conquering Ukraine again. This is the 3rd attempt. In the 19th century, they banned the printing of Ukrainian books. In the 20th century, they caused an artificial famine in which 5 million people were murdered, and the entire culture-bearing Ukrainian class was obliterated in the 1930s, and this is the third attempt. And now to your question. Putin says he wants peace, and in a sense, every dictator and every conqueror wants peace. If you give up and you capitulate, you'll have peace. But the question is, under what conditions? And Russia can tolerate Ukrainianness as a sort of provincial version, a Russian folklore. But Russia cannot tolerate Ukraine, or at least Putin cannot, as a nation with its own identity, history, interests, including security interests, and its own desire to integrate with other organizations than Russia's. And the question in this war is, who will crack first? And Ukrainians are showing that they're not cracking on the front line. Russian advances are tiny. And history teaches us that bombing populations doesn't work. The Luftwaffe didn't break the spirit of London. The Royal Air Force didn't break the will to fight of the people of Germany. In fact, they get stiffened. So the real question is, when will Putin run out of resources to carry out this war? And cracks are beginning to show in the Russian economy. We have given Ukraine 90 billion euros. That should be enough to sustain them for 2 years. If we gave them 10 or 20 billion more, they could actually get their defense industry up to full capacity, and then the fight would be more equal.
Thank you very much. We'll go back. We'll come back to the state of the Russian economy and the state of Russia in just a moment, but I wanted to hear from Minister Pistorius, actually, when Minister Sikorski says that we deserve a place at the negotiating table. How do we do that? And when are we going to be sitting at the negotiating table?
I have no idea, to be honest, because it's not up to us.
But we're paying the bill.
We are paying the bill, but we are not paying the bill to Vladimir Putin. And Vladimir Putin refuses to negotiate with Europeans. And the Americans let that happen. That is our problem at the moment, at least from my perspective. Washington let that happen. We can't push ourselves at the negotiation table when Putin is not willing to talk with us. And again, Washington let that happen. So what we should do is to confirm our will every day that we will proceed supporting Ukraine. And this is what we really need to focus on, especially when I think about the last UDCGs and the last contributions. We need more, we need it faster, we need it more efficiently. And I mean, we just have been talking about air defense and the attacks on Kiev every night, and killing people in their apartments because they die by cold. We need to get faster in scaling our production in the US and in Europe to be able to deliver and to provide more and faster what is needed so urgently when it comes to air defense. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the morale of the brave Ukrainian people might break finally.
Thank you. Senator, I know this is not probably a question to you, but we have to ask it. Why is Washington not letting the Europeans be at the negotiating table and listening to Vladimir Putin, who's saying a tough no?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer a rhetorical question, but I think, like, it's not hidden to anyone here at the Munich Security Conference that the United States is going through something. That we have, like, is anyone missing that?
Tell us more.
Is anyone missing that? So I think we're going through something at a fundamental level in our democracy. And because of that, we're going through something profound as it relates to foreign policy. It's the theme of this entire conference, or every side conversation at least.
Under
right?
destruction.
So, right. So I think and when it comes to Ukraine, given where we were a year ago, right? For those of you who were here and the vice president came and stood on this stage and gave a speech, I was sitting up there. I mean, like the breath fell out of my lungs. A year later, we still have this good cop, bad cop, what do we want to do with Ukraine from the White House, right? Do we want to pull completely back, give it to the Europeans, not our problem? Or quite the opposite, do we feel like it's extremely important to bring this to some sort of resolution? You can talk to 3 different Americans and get 4 different opinions, okay? So I think that's why you don't have Europeans at the table, and we have a saying, I used to work at the Pentagon, that you don't talk about them without them. And if you want the Europeans to be part of the ultimate settlement, which we desperately do, which the president says he does, then of course the Europeans should be at the table. But the fundamentals of the conflict, where the Ukrainians have fought so bravely, changed the nature of tactical warfare, I think, with what they have done. I mean, we're all learning lessons from the Ukrainians. But let's not mistake that the fundamental question is, are we willing to exert more military or economic pain on Vladimir Putin? And because we're a mess back home in the United States, because we don't know the answer to that question, we're in this merry-go-round. And you're not on it with us. When you come on, it's not any more organized. We have to answer that fundamental question, and that's something we're deeply grappling with in the United States.
And while at it, I'll give the floor in a moment to Minister Sikorski, but we see, and we've been told many times during the last 2 days, that the American...
You know, deeper in putting that pressure on a bully, they would understand that basic power conversation.
Do you see those leaders?
Do I what?
Do you see those leaders?
See them. I mean, again, I'll answer whatever rhetorical question you want, but I was almost indicted last week by my government. So we are going through something profound, and we will get through it. I believe to my core we will get through it, but we will have to hit rock bottom before we come back up, and we're going to have to fight for it. So no, I don't see a clear, straight line to getting those answers. But many of us feel very passionate. We are here because we feel very passionately that our interests with Europe are aligned, and that allowing Vladimir Putin to roll over Ukraine is not just horrible for Ukraine, it's horrible for Europe and horrible for us.
Minister Sikorski.
Europe should be at the table because the stakes are incredibly high. It's not that just the future of Ukraine, it's not just the security of the eastern flank, it is about the place of Europe in the future distribution of power in the world. In other words, who will be the third leg of global distribution? China, United States, and Russia, or the European Union? Don't ask me which I would prefer. And to my mind, President Trump is not wrong when he says that in this more brutal world, you need to show your cards. The United States would give itself more cards to pressure Putin into a deal by, for example, delivering tomahawks to Ukrainians. And the decision was apparently quite close a couple of months ago. Taurises would help too. But as Europe, what we should say is that if the US forces Ukraine into an unfair deal, we will continue with our commitment to Ukraine, and it is Ukraine that will decide when to make a deal. And then we will not be able to be ignored by Putin, because we will then become the main provider to Ukraine.
Very good point. Thank you very much, Minister. I'll bring back Minister Kaczka here to the discussion. Unfortunately, many leaders around the world, people believe that Russia is invincible. That for some reason, Russia wins every war at the end of the game because of its, willingness to take the long-haul perspective and sacrifice. What do you say as a Ukrainian to these people?
First, I think that with Minister Sikorski, I think we can say that Soviet Union collapsed in Afghanistan. Yeah, so that's also an example that not every war was won. Yeah, and I think that my personal thing is I always highlight that Russia was able to win the war when Ukraine was part of Russian Empire. So with us, it is possible. Against us, it is impossible. So that's why I think that we all need to understand that we are at the table of negotiations, so that Europe, and why? Because what we are talking now, so that whether everyone believes that we have really systemic negotiations with Russia, even Secretary Rubio today said that he rather doubts about the position of Russia. We are at the moment when we are thinking, doing, finding a way how to force Russia to be at the table of negotiations. It is impossible without European pressure. It was impossible without US pressure in terms of sanctions, and we had a lot of tactical discuss. But it's also impossible without showing that we have really strong security guarantees. And these security guarantees should be designed, developed, and implemented as a first initial step before the negotiations, just to show Russia that they cannot win against us, but they definitely will lose if we are all together. And we have these security guarantees as a political, legal, but also practical commitment. Practical commitment in terms of training, in terms of establishing our cooperation, but also supplying weapons. So that's why what is happening now is a creation of this environment and this universe for negotiations, and we are all at the table. So despite the actual setting of the meetings in Geneva, for example, because we still need to create an environment when Russia literally negotiates and not pretend that it negotiates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yes.
Just on the point of fact, Mazepa was with Charles XII during the Great Northern War, and yet the Russians won at Poltava. So, but since then, it's been a better run. So the Russians lost the Crimean War, the Russians lost the Russo-Japanese War, the Russians were knocked out of World War I, the Russians lost at the Battle of Warsaw when they tried to conquer Europe, the Russians lost in Afghanistan, I saw it, and the Russians lost the Cold War. So no, the Russians don't always win, and, but there is good news. Every time after they've lost, and in fact only then, there are reforms.
Thank you, Minister. President, and this question actually goes to President Ausala, but also to both of the ministers. Of course, that Russia understands only strength, but it has tested us as European Union countries, as NATO countries, over the last 4 years, and specifically this year, to a huge extent. It's not only arson attacks, sabotage. We saw in Poland 20 over drones flying into our airspace. Do you think we're sending a signal to Russia that we're ready to retaliate for this kind of behavior? Because so far, our societies say we're not doing enough in this matter.
I will refer to that, return to this question, but I would like to say that Russia lost one more war in 1990 as my country regained the independence, and we survived the events of January 13th. And other Baltic countries also regained their independence. I think Russia is not as successful as pretends to be. And now I think we have to look more carefully to the economy of Russia, what is happening there. And I think that they are in the situation of stagflation. Every economist will say that stagflation is a very dangerous situation where you have no tools how to repair the situation. If you increase the interest rates, you will contribute to diminishing and dropping of economic activity. If you will reduce interest rates, inflation will be even higher. So the living standard is going down, especially in the regions of Russian Federation. But you know, this is a country where you can just ignore the needs of the people because you don't have the election process. You have no democracy. We all in Western countries, we would lose the elections if the economy would be in such a bad shape, but not in Russia, at least for the time being. Now,
So where is the pain? Where do you
there's a
think?
pain. There's a pain. I think the pain, the line of the pain is not far away. But of course, Russia is still on the way to this situation. Now, please remind me your question. We survived the events of January 13th, and other Baltic countries also regained their independence. I think Russia is not as successful as pretends to be. And now I think we have to look more carefully to the economy of Russia, what is happening there. And I think that they are in the situation of stagflation. And every economist will say that stagflation is a very dangerous situation where you have no tools how to repair the situation. If you increase the interest rates, you will contribute to diminishing and dropping of economic activity. If you will reduce interest rates, inflation will be even higher. So the living standard is going down, especially in the regions of Russian Federation. But you know, this is a country where you can just ignore the needs of the people because you don't have the election process. You have no democracy. We all in Western countries, we would lose the elections if the economy would be in such a bad shape, but not in Russia, at least for the time being. Now,
So where is the pain? Where do you
there's a
think?
pain. There's a pain. I think the pain, the line of the pain is not far away. But of course, Russia is still on the way to this situation. Now, please remind me your question.
Hybrid warfare.
Hybrid war.
Arson.
Yes, you know, we are very good specialists in this regard because Lithuania has very long border with Belarus, close ally, close proxy with Russian Federation. And we have also 120 kilometers borderline with Kaliningrad region. So all the time, we are exposed to different kind of hybrid attacks. No matter, in 2021, it was illegal migration, artificially created problem by Alexander Lukashenko, sending the people from Middle East, from North Africa to Minsk, then from Minsk to the border. And we could see the officials and employees of Alexander Lukashenko regime instructing them how to cross the border, how to destabilize the situation at the border. Then later, now we are suffering the flights of balloons, meteor balloons, actually for smuggling purpose, for cigarettes, but actually...
But are we responding effectively? Do you think the Russians are getting the signal that we're responding?
Solutions, and we count on the European Union flagship initiatives like Eastern Flank Watch. And I think the more successful we are, because this is really the threat to our society. Society is under threat. Society is asking politicians what to do. Do you have enough tools to respond to it? But I think those hybrid attacks contribute that we are looking for the solutions on European Union level. And this is a good point, that we are ready to respond, we are ready to take the solutions, and we are looking forward. I think we should understand that Belarus should be included in the sanctions list, sanctions which were imposed on the Russian Federation, because this country is destabilizing and destabilizing the situation at the border deliberately. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Intentionally.
Thank you. The same, very shortly, Minister Pistorius, Minister Sikorski, are we doing enough? Are we able to take our gloves off when it comes to responding? Germany also had drones over your airports, many other attacks in the cyberspace. You know, are we signaling Russia the way we should?
At least we started doing so. We're speeding up, we're ramping up, we're becoming better and better every day by developing new technologies, by procuring what is available. So we are better every day. And at the same time, I would fully agree with Mr. Nausėdas, Mr. President, that it is a European issue in the first place, because it is not a national, can't be a national issue for smaller or bigger countries in Europe. We all know that disinformation, fake news, and hybrid warfare does not stop at frontiers of some single small countries. And the third point I would like to raise is, It is a matter of mindset in our societies, how we react to that, how we serious we take what's going on. And for my country, I can say I really have been seeing in the last years an incredible, at least 3 years ago or 5 years ago, an incredible change of mindset in terms of that. The society is getting more and more resilient, and at the same time, of course, hoping and praying for peace, but more and more resilient, and that is what we need, more resilient societies.
Thank you very much. I want to take 2 or 3 questions, but please, Minister, and then very shortly on this.
I think Putin makes a mistake by provoking us through hybrid activities because it stiffens our resistance and allows us to have higher defense budgets. But what he does is incredibly active. You've had assassinations in Germany, in Britain. We've all had arsons. We've had attempted arsons on board airliners. We have cutting of cables and pipelines at sea. We've had the suppression of GPS signal. We've had an attempt to explode rail lines under a moving train on a high escarpment. People would have died were it not for the incompetence of the assailants. And we've had mass intrusions of Russian drones and cruise missiles into our airspace. This is all forcing us to take countermeasures. And there are further things that we could do. So I've closed down 3 Russian consulates. We've restricted the movement of Russian diplomats in Poland. We still have over 2,000 Russian diplomats. Our security services think up to 40% of them are spies. We should not be tolerating them. They should not benefit from the freedom of movement across the Schengen zone, which they are trying to destroy. And we've also spent almost €1 billion on building a big and beautiful fence on our border with Belarus, through which they were pushing migrants on purpose. So it's all costing us. It's all making us more resilient, but there are more things that we could do together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Taras, very briefly.
I would like to say that we are still not doing enough because the war is continuous and the threats are continuous, but the dynamic is extremely positive. I totally agree that even like previous conference and this conference, the mood is absolutely different. So we have very practical things. So that's why I think that we need to also pay attention to the dynamics, so that how fast we are changing, how fast we are moving. That's important now, because I think that there is already a consensus that we are moving proper direction, we are doing right things, but these dynamics, the tempo is the most important element, and here we see some risks, so that's because of Europe always like a little bit slower than everyone expects, but...
So let's take some questions. If we can take them together, I'm already seeing here 2 and 3. So let's start with the lady in the red, Lisa. The floor is yours.
Lisa Jasko, member of the Parliament of Ukraine. A quick question to the President of Lithuania and also Minister Sikorski. If Poland or Lithuania will be invaded, what specifically would you expect from NATO or non-NATO countries to defend you? Thank you.
And before you answer, we'll take 2 more questions from our Munich young leader here. Ellie, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
From the French Institute of International Relations. Minister Sikorski, you reminded us that the EU, or Europeans in general, have been paying for this war over the last year. The EU has finally secured a 90 billion loan for Ukraine to be spent over the next 2 years, I believe. Now, there seems to be a conversation among Europeans about how to spend these, whether
question,
on
please.
Ukrainian industry, European industry, or American defense industry. To the whole panel, thank you.
Thank you, and it's also to the whole panel, but I can't say no to Garry Kasparov. I'm sorry, I have a soft spot there. Garry, the floor is yours. And then we'll take the 4th question.
Question to Minister Pistorius, just following your presentation. Germany is about to spend tens, maybe hundreds of billions of euros on defense, on military procurement. Are you going to prepare for the old war or for a new one? Are you going to spend on something that doesn't make any sense, but it's online, and of course, are you willing to go against massive business interests that will push the waste of the money, instead of going with Ukrainians and start providing new technology to fight effective war against Russians?
Thank you. And at the back there, please.
Thank you. I have a question to Senator Slotkin, Łukasz Pawłowski, Polish MFA. You said that US society is going through something and that it is going to hit the rock bottom before it comes back up. Would you care to define what the rock bottom is?
So let us start with Senator Slotkin, please.
Sure. I mean, look, I think I'm sitting in a room full of people who come from active democracies. Some of you have fought very hard for your democracies. We are in a struggle for our democracy. It's not the first time in our 250 years, but it is certainly the most real one of my lifetime. And I think what we're seeing happen right now is, as things deteriorate, for instance, in Minneapolis, right? It is hitting something in the American consciousness, a sort of barometer for authoritarianism that they instinctively look at and don't like. Now, because of confusion over years on what media source to listen to, what political party you come from, people are very, they're very unsure about what they read. But when they see it with their own eyes, that is something fundamentally different. And that's why you just saw President Trump very quietly slink out of Minneapolis, because he understands it is just deeply unpopular, not just with Democrats, but with independents, Republicans, and people of all stripes. The more he overplays that authoritarianism, the more people can see it with their own eyes, the more they say, look, I voted for him because I wanted a better economy. I thought we would get it that way, but I didn't sign up for this. And I come from a state that just voted for Donald Trump, so I understand this. So I can't tell you the exact ways and the definition of rock bottom, but I will tell you, I stand here as an American senator feeling very concerned about the 2026 elections in November. He is telling us what he wants to do. He is laying it out for us, and it is up to the Americans to believe him, right? That just like in 2020, he said, if I don't win, then it wasn't a free and fair election. He is repeating the playbook, now threatening to put uniformed federal agents around polling locations. I mean, he's telling us the playbook. So the question is, what are we gonna do as Americans to defend our democracy that we helped invent? Okay? And that, to me, that process that's going on right now, which is playing out in front of all of you, it's not like we like coming here and talking to you about the difficulties in our own country. No one likes to do that. But it is playing out in front of you, and the question is, will the American people, and when will the American people feel like the issues of democracy are actually not someone else's issues, their kitchen table issues, they affect my everyday life, my safety, my family, my security, my livelihood. When that happens, you will see the American people push back in a profound way, as you've seen in places like Minneapolis. That is the process we are in right now. I can't define it for you, but it is happening before our eyes.
Thank you very much, Senator. We have 5 minutes left, so 1 minute per speaker. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your clarity.
1 minute per speaker. You can answer the question, or you can just engage in the debate we're having currently about the United States.
I'll ask the question from the Ukrainian parliamentarian about what I would expect to happen if Russian tanks crossed the border. Well, we joined NATO for common defense. So in the sense, there's an easy answer. If they cross the border, start killing NATO citizens, Polish citizens, we would expect the North Atlantic Council to meet and to activate the contingency plan. And after that, the plan is very easy. We win, they lose.
That's a good plan, Minister. Minister Pistorius. So how do we win, they lose?
Very brief to the question in terms of procurement. When we started, we had huge gaps of almost everything, and we need to fill them as soon as fast as possible. And at the same time, of course, we know that the war of the future is not just described. If anybody had told us 5 years ago that drones would play such a relevant and crucial role, nobody would have believed or could have imagined that. So therefore, we should do and will do everything which is necessary to anticipate what might happen. And that means more investment in innovation, more investment in new technologies, more cooperation with startups and more cooperation between startups and the Bundeswehr, more clarity in the view to the future, what might be needed, and to learn from Ukraine. Joint ventures with Ukraine are crucial for us and really very critical. We learn every day from the experience of our Ukrainian friends on the battlefield, and this is what it's about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to the President, and the last word will be to Ukraine. President, do you agree we win, they lose? That's the strategy?
Look, don't think that the brave people live only in Ukraine. The brave people live in Lithuania too. We were struggling for our freedom 50 years in a row, and we regained our independence. So in the case of invasion, first of all, we will make the life of aggressor as painful as possible. And then, of course, we will count on the support, first of all, of Article 5, NATO, and we are doing a lot in order to build this so-called wall of deterrence together with our friends, Germany, brigade, Mr. Pistorius mentioned brigade, deployment of German brigade. We have 2 American battalions on the rotational basis, and we are ready to establish Lithuanian National Division until 2030. We are ready, we will win, they will lose.
Thank you very much. And Taras.
I think that first and foremost, we need to bear in mind that everything we did successfully, we did together and with your support. So that's why we all are brave, and we already proved it. We are stronger than we are perceived, and we also prove it. We need not to think what will happen or when it happens, but we need to work now to deter with sanctions, with all the policies. So that's true. And on money, I think that we need to understand that the real cost of a year of war for us and for all of us is more than 100 billion of US dollars. So that's why 90 billion is like is not all the money that unfortunately we will need to spend on defense. And this is also one of the biggest questions of security guarantee on how to finance these defense things, but this is rather for all thinkers for many months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, holding the line, defending Europe and supporting Ukraine, let's give a huge round of applause to our panel.